Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into another tech roundup. You guys sent in a ton of interesting articles, so let's get right to it. We've got some big headlines to unpack. From Microsoft making a pretty big shift with their augmented reality stuff, to, well, no surprise here, Epic Games is back in the legal ring again. Oh, and AI. AI is getting really interesting in both good and slightly worrying ways.
It's true. The speed at which technology changes is really something. And what's interesting to me is that it's not just about the technology itself anymore. We're talking about who controls it, how accessible it is, and even the impact it has on law and the justice system. It's pretty big picture stuff.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's kick things off with Microsoft. They're hitting the brakes on the HoloLens 2, which was, their big foray into augmented reality, or AR as the cool kids call it. Basically, AR overlays digital stuff onto the real world. Think like seeing holograms pop up in your living room. Anyway, the HoloLens was always more for businesses than, everyday people like you and me, but still, it was a big deal for Microsoft. So what happened?
Well, I wouldn't say it's the end of AR, not by a long shot. But it is a setback for Microsoft, I'll give you that. But this doesn't mean augmented reality is dead. Not at all. Other big players are jumping into the game, and they're coming in hot. You got Apple, for example. They're going after the, shall we say, the higher end of the market, those consumers willing to shell out some serious cash with their Vision Pro headset. I mean, this thing is supposed to have incredible displays, super accurate hand tracking. It's a whole different ball game than Microsoft's approach, which, was always more about practicality and business uses. And then there's Meta, right? They're all in on virtual reality, the whole metaverse thing. And don't forget Snap. They're experimenting with AR glasses, too. Yeah. It's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out. Who's going to come out on top? What approach will actually stick? It's anyone's game right now.
It's a good old-fashioned tech showdown. And speaking of showdowns, Epic Games, the company behind the gaming giant Fortnite, is back in court. Honestly, is anyone surprised? It seems like they're always in some legal battle. This time, they've got Samsung in their sights over something called Auto Blocker. Basically, this feature makes it harder for people to download apps from anywhere other than the usual app stores.
Right. And this is a big deal because it gets into this whole debate about control. Epic's argument is that Samsung is limiting consumer choice. They're saying that this auto blocker thing is stifling competition, especially for companies like Epic who are trying to create alternatives to Google Play and Apple's App Store. It all ties into that bigger conversation about monopolies, those giant companies that control entire markets. And it even touches on the idea of net neutrality, which is the whole concept that all internet traffic should be treated equally.
And of course, Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic, he never misses an opportunity to stir the pot a little bit. He's been throwing out hints that maybe Samsung and Google are working together to make this happen. But so far, there's no real proof of that.
Yeah, and this lawsuit, it's just the latest chapter in Epic's ongoing crusade against what they see as unfair App Store rules. They've been going after Apple and Google for ages, challenging how apps are distributed and the fees that developers have to pay. It's a messy situation, and there are no easy answers. I mean, on one hand, you have these massive companies, and you have to wonder if they're really holding back innovation. But on the other hand, these platforms, they provide a certain level of convenience and security. It's something for everyone to consider, for sure.
It really is. Okay, let's switch gears for a second and talk about something a bit more, shall we say, fun. AI. Samsung's coming out with some new tablets that have all sorts of AI-powered features, like better handwriting detection and note-taking capabilities. Sounds pretty cool to me.
I mean, the technology is pretty impressive. I have to admit, some of the advancements in AI lately have been really cool. But, and this is a big but, it's important to be cautious about, overhyping things. The Federal Trade Commission, or FTC for short, they just went after a company called Donut Pay. They called themselves a robot lawyer. Catchy name, right? But basically, the FTC said they were making promises about their AI that they couldn't keep. They ended up with a hefty fine, and I think that sends a message. You can't just slap the label AI on something and expect to get away with overselling it. There need to be limits, We need to make sure that AI is being used ethically.
Yeah, and the FTC isn't messing around. They've launched this whole initiative called Operation AI Comply. They're really cracking down on companies that are making misleading claims about AI.
It's about time, honestly. And this all goes back to the bigger picture. We need to be having serious discussions about how we're going to regulate AI as it becomes more powerful. It's not about stopping progress. It's about making sure that AI is developed and used responsibly. We need those safeguards in place.
Right, we can't just let things run wild. Okay, so let's do a quick recap, shall we? Microsoft's taking a step back from AR, at least for now. Epic Games is stirring up trouble again, this time taking aim at Samsung. And AI, well, AI is blowing our minds with its possibilities, but it's also got us a little concerned.
It's a lot, right? But what I find so fascinating is how all of these stories are connected. They all highlight just how quickly technology is changing and the huge impact these changes are having on our world. I think the key takeaway here is that we can't just sit back and let it happen. We need to stay informed, ask tough questions, and really think about the long-term consequences. Because at the end of the day, these aren't just tech stories. These are stories about the future we're creating, and that's something that affects every single one of us.